Here you can see a picture before and after. These are algae. The impacts in the marine environment are more than evident. Things are shifting very, very rapidly in the marine environment. And if we do not take any action, many of them are irreversible, and we may not be able in the near future to do anything to change this back to an ecological stable condition. The results, just to summarize them, because the study was quite extensive, the findings showed that there was an ecological collapse of the native habitat forming algae, which strongly indicates a coastal ecosystem functionally depleted from large fish predators. This is something that fishermen have already identified, and this is something that makes also their livelihood not sustainable. So the more gear they put in the sea, the more pressure they put in the marine ecosystems, the more fish are taken out of the sea. So the rates of taking out biomass cannot be sustained. Marine ecosystems are actually emptying, and if we do not take measures, this will be completely catastrophic in the future, something that we already can see happening in front of our eyes. So we have a low total fish biomass, absence of large apex predators, a highly degraded structure and composition of algal communities. This is also the result of overgrazing by poorly controlled herbivorous species. Invasive alien species do play a significant role in this. Hopefully, no pollution indicators were recorded in 2012. Litter and underwater waterways were locally detected, and this is something that needs much more investigation since 2012, because things may have changed rapidly since then. The area of the caldera seems to be much more important than the Parisa rock. It's much more diverse. Largest heterogeneity is very important there. And for sure, the need for specific management measures is necessary to secure the conservation of native communities of species in Santorini. The next steps after this study that was carried out in 2012 was a collective effort to inform, sensitize, and engage local stakeholders and the community on the needs to protect Santorini's waters. So there was an open event in 2014 that called for all involved and interested people, representatives of stakeholders, to discuss the findings of the study and discuss what kind of measures and work can be carried out in the future in order to work towards the protection of Santorini. And this brought a significant consensus between all involved parties. Fishermen were the first in this initiative, clearly supporting and asking for measures to be taken, since their livelihoods and their catches have been diminishing over the last years. It's very clear for them that fisheries are not sustainable in Santorini, and the whole pressures are constantly increasing. Thus, this cannot be continued. So we agreed all together in the creation of a protected area proposed, as you can see in the map, surrounding the peninsula of Santorini. It's an area of nearly 6 square kilometers surrounding Akrotiri, consisting of parts of the caldera, but also parts of the southern slopes of the coastal areas in Santorini. And during this meeting, it was decided by all participants to establish a society, a local society that would further push forward with the establishment of a local MPA, and also to strengthen the cooperation between conservationists, scientists, the local municipality, and the fishers. The next steps that were carried out after this meeting were many. Some of them have resulted in significant achievements, others not. Since in 2016, there was a proposition by HCMR to designate a new Marine Natura 2000 site, which was widely supported by several stakeholders, and also by the municipality of Santorini with formal support letters. However, the ministry did not accept and did not move forward with this designation. Then in the December of 2017, a joint committee comprised from the mayor of Santorini, the president of the Fisheries Union, representatives of the Ferais Sea Association that had been formed, Cousteau divers, jointly appealed to the competent Directorate General for Fisheries, which is under the auspices of Ministry of Food and Rural Development, submitting all relevant documentation, requesting the establishment of a no-take MPA in Santorini Island. 1 year later, very late and without proper documentation, the Directorate unfortunately rejected the request on the grounds that the need for protection is not entirely substantiated. Albeit repeated attempts to obtain clear answers as to the procedural and documentary requirements for such a substantiation, no further response has been provided ever since. So we have ever since turned our attention to another ministry, the Ministry for the Environment. So during October 2020, a meeting was set up with the Deputy Minister for the Environment, Mr. Tagaras, during which the whole initiative was presented and legal possibilities for the establishment of a protected area were discussed. The meeting resulted in identifying that the possible solution is the designation of the proposed marine area as an underwater protected landscape and natural formation according to Law 3937 for the protection of biodiversity through a ministerial decision. It should be noted that for this meeting and for the whole process, the Municipal Authority of Santorini has been fully supportive towards the establishment of a marine protected area, closely following the whole procedure and actively contributing to the whole process of a designation. So as you can see, there is a timeline of effort we have carried out for this. We are still working towards this. There is still no MPA designated, formally established in Santorini. However, we have now identified the most, let's say, the most appropriate legal tool that this for establishing the MPA. And we should mention here that this whole initiative is let's say unconventional. It's a bottom-up approach that has been initiated by stakeholders, namely divers and fishers, that require the natural environment of the island to be preserved and protected against destructive practices, and in order to sustain it and maintain it for the future. And during the whole process, we achieved to achieve consensus and unanimity among contradicting opinions and stances between fishers and conservationists and scientists that are not foreseen on a formal process, since the current legislation in Greece follows a top-down approach. The ministry decides and then they should be implemented. Unfortunately, this not only leads to problematic situation, but ends up in actual paper parks, which is the case in Greece for most of the marine protected areas, where they might be legally declared and designated. However, no actual measures are enforced, and stakeholders and all involved bodies are against any conservation measures and regulations that have been imposed on this top-down approach. International practice has shown that bottom-up conservation approaches and early engagement of stakeholders, especially fishers, in decision-making processes, they not only boost the MPA process, the designation, but assure its effectiveness and actual implementation. Furthermore, there have been a lot of effort invested in bringing fishermen into current knowledge on MPAs, in exchanging and promoting approaches that are implemented in other areas in the Mediterranean and further away. So we have arranged fisheries exchange for small-scale fisheries in France and in England, where schemes of conservation have been successfully implemented, bottom-up schemes where fishermen were the initiators and the main force behind their designation, but also their governance. So they have seen on first hand how such schemes and protected areas work, helping a lot to bring this kind of expertise and experience in our country. We have been also promoting and discussing a lot with the exploration of other initiatives that could reduce fishing effort and impacts, like fishing tourism, which is a development in Sandorίνη that has gained a lot of momentum at the moment. Many fishers have steered their everyday activities, especially during the touristic period, and they have minimized their impacts to the environment by actually not selling fish, but fishing itself through pescatourism activities. And of course, other joint activities like underwater cleanups have been carried out by several other initiatives, both in the past and currently are being carried out on the island of Santorini, further supporting this kind of approaches. Last but not least, and something that we have already identified, I have identified before, are the issue with invasive alien species that have that currently have a huge impact in the marine environment. So in collaboration with other organizations like IC and the support by Cyclades Preservation Fund, we have been working the last 2 years in exploring market-based initiatives for a more sustainable and locally sourced fishery. Many of these species may be toxic, like the puffin fish, but others like the Pterois miles, the lionfish, and several other species that have been found in large quantities and densities in the Cyclades right now are edible. So we have worked with other organizations in promoting their consumption and also pushing towards fisheries to start targeting these species instead of other species that are under huge pressure in the marine environment. These are the main points that I would like to highlight during this presentation. And I would also like to dedicate this speech to the memory of Petros Nikolaidis, who was late Petros Nikolaidis, who without whom the project would have never materialized, and unfortunately was lost 4 years ago. And we would be very proud to move forward and follow his vision for establishing marine protected areas in the Cyclades, as was his vision that we share right now as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barabas. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sure he's very proud for you completing the vision.